Hello and welcome to Indie Incursion, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you need to know. This week we're bringing you 3 awesome indie games news stories, not including the ones in Newscram, and we're going to hop into some sweet-ass indie games in God Bless the Crowd. But before any of that, I need to introduce myself. I am Vaughn Hyde, one of your hosts, and alongside me, not really, kind of through the magic of the internet, is my illustrious co-host, the biggest of average, Josh Boys. How you doing, big boy?
I'm doing well. I like how my title keeps growing. I also like how you sound much more game show host now that you have a good script in front of you.
Yeah, I'm going for a game show host vibe, you know? I'm just kind of like, eventually I want to get the voice down where it sounds like I'm 40-year-old, or not even 40, probably like 60 years old, have like a lot of rock candy in my pocket, like butterscotch and such. I actually really enjoy hard candy. I'm basically an old man.
You talking about like the Game Show Network, kind of like old school, like the creepy...
Yeah, like Bob Barker.
Yeah, Bob Barker, and the other guy who was always on that one, oh man, I can't remember the name of it, but they were always so creepy, and they would like, there was one guy where there's like a whole YouTube video where he always makes like the little kids like give him a kiss, and it was like creepy as fuck, but people just kind of like turn the other cheek back, like
on the mouth,
like, yeah, something like that. Like, it was really weird. And there's like a YouTube video out there of like a whole collection of them like back to back to back and like slowed down, so it's like super creepy. I'll have to find it later. It's really weird.
The game kids show, like walk by and he's like, "Give daddy a kiss."
Something like that. I don't know. Game show hosts are creepy. At least old school ones, I guess. But yeah, you could do that. You could. I mean, mine is the creepy part. I'm not gonna kiss you. I'm also not a little boy.
Start off the podcast every time. I'm like, "Give Papa a kiss, Josh boy."
Well, any of the listeners we had just fucking dumped. They're like, "Nope, I'm out."
Or you could take it a different way and say dump their pants because they thought it was so good, dude.
I mean, do you normally dump your pants when something's really good?
I didn't shit my pants in a long time. We both know that.
I guess
Let's
that's
be
true.
real.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Been established.
Yeah.
What you playing this week, Big Josh boy?
Oh, I've been playing one game I can't talk about yet, but that'll come probably next episode, I think. And then the other game I've been playing is something that I've been playing for a long time, actually. But I've been playing it in board game version. So just recently, the Gloomhaven game came out for PC, Steam, basically. And so if you don't know, Gloomhaven is it's not made by the same people who made the board game, but they're essentially creating it to feel and look the same, just in a virtual space. So the way the game works is it's a board game that has full progression, where there's a ton of different characters that you play. You only get to start with a certain amount of classes. I believe it's 6 classes. You can only pick through them. And then as you play, you get personal quests with each character. You go through the story because there's a ton of different quests to basically complete and finalize. You have this personal quest that once you unlock, you have to retire your character. You unlock new characters in the board game itself and unlock new quests while you're playing. So it almost plays as if it is a video game. And so someone just finally took that and they were like, all right, we're just going to make a, processed version of this. Right now, the game is very similar in the state of the same combat, the same kind of mechanics. But the way they have it right now is it's in alpha. And they're doing kind of like a roguelike mode where it's adventure mode, and it's essentially all of the levels are procedurally generated, and it's this story that's not specific to the actual board game. And then while they're fixing up those mechanics and kind of mastering it, they're going to be putting in the entire board game version to this game so that you can essentially play it on PC, and eventually later down the road they say they're going to bring in multiplayer, so you'll be able to play it with all friends over the internet just like you would if you were sitting right next to them, playing the board game. So it's really cool. I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. It's a little glitchy at times, and there's definitely like an alpha rough edge feeling to it because there's just some things that they feel a little clunky as far as how many clicks you have to get to actually go through an action, or not seeing certain elements that you would normally know because you're playing the board game. But for the most part, I'm having a good time with it. And really, the only reason I bought this early was because I knew that the price would probably skyrocket after it comes out of alpha. And I want it for when they bring out the multiplayer version.
This is really interesting. Are you playing as the Rock Boy?
I am playing.
Thing, some might say.
I am playing as the Rock Boy. So the way they set up the game and the way you play in, the board game, if you're just a single player, is you have to play with at least 2 characters. And the way they started off is they make it kind of easy for you because people who are just jumping into it, you can technically play with 4 players, but you have to manage a lot because you have to take the turn for each individual character. So you have to start with 2 teams, basically a team of 2 characters. And the way they've done it is they make save files per each combination of the characters. So you can start your own party with the big rock boy and then the spell weaver, or the big rock boy's name is actually Craghart, or the brute and the scoundrel. So you basically can mix and match, and it'll start as their own play run, because that's essentially the way the game would work in the board game. You would have one character and you stick with that one character throughout the entire quest until you finish your personal quest and have to retire. And then you either choose another character or you unlock a character and you can then pick that new one.
What is the ultimate goal in Gloomhaven? Is there like a big bad you're supposed to beat, or is it just to complete your quest?
So there is, and that's kind of the interesting part of it, is I don't know the full story because I've been playing this for about 1 year to 2 years now, and I'm still not through with it because I'm only doing it like every Saturday, every other Saturday with a group of friends when there's like 90 some odd quests, and you could technically fail them and then have to redo it. But essentially you're going through and you're learning the story. You're basically just in this town called Gloomhaven and you're traveling around, and it's very, very the same kind of, fantasy of there's demons, there's spellcasters. It's going through, but I don't know the full story, so I can't really say one way or the other how it goes. And also certain things that you do in the game will change the story for those players, not by a drastic amount, but there's certain things you can do. So kind of a spoiler is one of the first bosses in the game, I believe it was one of the first, you can either choose to kill that individual, like fight against them, or to pair with them and fight a different group of baddies. So we have 2 groups of friends who are basically playing this simultaneously, and they chose the opposite side, so there's 2 different sides of the story that they're going on, and because of that, certain quests are just X'd out. Like, we can never do that one because we chose to side with the other person.
This game looks really interesting. I've seen the board game before, like on IGN and stuff, when they have it on sale, because that board game is an excessive. It's very cost. It costs a lot.
It is a ton of money. And it is a lot of work if you're just using the board game. There's also a couple of apps and things that me and my friends use to speed up the process a little bit. But the board game is huge. It's
$103 on Amazon, and that's on sale. It's normally $140.
Yeah, it's a massive amount. But here's the thing, and I was telling my wife about this too, because we're playing another board game right now, like on the side of something that where it's kind of like this. There's a lot of progression in it. And my wife was like, "Oh, I can't believe you guys will pay that much for those board games." And I'm like, "Well, it's $100, some odd dollars for Gloomhaven. But we've also been playing this for almost 2 years now because we're, playing every other weekend. And over that time, if you really think about how much money you would have spent if you went to a movie, like that weekend instead, and we hung out or something like that, we would have easily skyrocketed up in that amount. It's just a large investment up front. But that's what makes this game version of Gloomhaven, the PC computer version, actually very enticing, especially now that it's only $25, is because they want to put in the entire game into this one, video game. So there you go. If you jump in it now, it's $25. I don't know what it's going to expand to in the future. And also the caveat is they don't have a lot of those elements just yet. They only have a few characters. They only have this adventure mode. But if they're, trying to expand the game, eventually that will be a full-fledged, definitely worth your money, especially if you prefer playing that way versus an actual board game.
So it's it's increased price as a board game. Is that why you're assuming when it comes out of early access it's going to be much more, or did the developers comment on that?
The developers didn't comment on it, but what they've done in the past, that developer has had a track record of bringing things to alpha and then raising the price later. I don't know if it's going to be massive. I've seen certain ones before. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but because of that, I figure that it will. And generally you do see that happen when things are in early access or alpha access. They will generally go up once they're like, hey, this is a full-fledged game. Usually it's more enticing from them to lower the price point to get people in, to get feedback, and to build the game into what they can actually then full resale. So I'm just assuming. I could be wrong. It could stay $25. I highly doubt it with how much stuff they want to put in. But, you have to either take that gamble or go for it. If you're totally new to the series and you have no interest in it, I don't know if I would recommend it just yet, because it is very light on explaining anything, as well as, like I said, there's a lot of pieces missing. But if you are a fan of the game already, I think it's a pretty good time to just jump in there and be able to play whenever you want and play these procedurally generated maps.
I love that, our "What are we playing this week" segment always shows the divide in what, you and I as characters kind of a thing, because you, for one, are good at game and have friends, but you also play games that are in early access, which I specifically stray from.
Yeah.
I almost refuse to play anything in early access. I don't really know why.
I don't know.
I just feel like it's weird.
It's weird because I do actually, I was kind of thinking that the other day, I play a lot of early access games, and it's honestly one of the reasons why when I think about Slay the Spire, that just released recently, and a lot of people are going crazy about it right now, and they're like, oh, this could be game of the year. Obviously it won't make it, but it's getting well deserved, respect from a lot of mediums. But for me, I've played that game for like 2 years already or so. So for me, a lot of these early access games I keep playing, I'm always like, man, it's such old news. I don't want to play that anymore. I'm done with it. It's the same thing with Streets of Rogue. I'm definitely not. I play it every once in a while, but I've played it so long ago and it just recently came out that for me, it's not that big of news, I guess. It's interesting. I just like it because I like seeing how those games develop, and there's definitely a negative to it because obviously you're not getting the full game. There's going to be bugs and there's going to be issues with it, but sometimes that part can be a rewarding process if you're really into it, to try and help those people out and to be a part of that community. Granted, I'm not the best at that, but when I do, it's definitely something that is worth my time, as far as I'm like, oh, I'm building this game the way that I want it to be so that I can have more fun. So it really just depends on your play style and your interest level in those type of games.
So you brought up Game of the Year and Slay the Spire. So Slay the Spire, people have been talking about it a lot recently because I believe it just got a Switch port, correct?
Right.
Yeah, which last year I believe it came out on well, it was on PC before, but PC and PS4 and stuff like that. Yeah. So since you brought up Game of the Year, how do you feel? Do you think that games that just have ports within a year, not their initial release date or anything like that, but just a port during a year, do you think they should be considered for Game of the Year discussion? So let's say that the Witcher 3 port actually comes out this year for the Switch. Do you think that people Do you think they should put it in the Game of the Year discussion?
First take on that port is going to be garbage because...
Oh, yeah, it's definitely not going to be up to snuff versus everything else.
Yeah, there's no way it could make Game of the Year just because of how degraded in quality they have to make it to run on the Switch, which is fine. I think it's awesome that people can play it on the Switch, and if I didn't already play a good amount of that series, I probably would have picked it up. But I personally... I don't think it should. In relation to your question of should ports get that, like, oh, now this gets to be game of the year, I think it makes sense in certain cases because it's good to give those games more visibility, because sometimes games don't have as much recognition on one platform as they do another, just because of the general target audience for each different type of platform. But I don't know. It just seems weird, because I guess if you're really thinking, like realistically thinking of what was the game of the year, it's still a game and it's still the year. Like, as stupid as that sounds, but it's just the principle of things. Like, you would expect that the game of the year is going to be something that's like, this is a new game, the new hot topic of what people are playing, and created some kind of, movement or some kind of renowned, this is the best of the best kind of a discussion. So I guess realistically you could argue for it, but I don't like to think of it that way. But then again, in 5 months from now, I'll probably be the dumbass who forgets this discussion and puts a port as one of my top 10, because I'll probably be like, well, I couldn't really think of anything, so Slay the Spire, so like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I don't know, if you think about it, if you include ports within your Game of the Year discussion, even though, like, so obviously The Witcher came out years ago, it's coming to the Switch, or like Slay the Spire came out last year, but now it's coming to the Switch, people might actually, like, hold off their ports for games until a year that they believe is less crowded. So, like, this
they'd want
year,
to do it now.
Yeah, we haven't had, like, massive titles so far. Last year, they had to contend with God of War, Red Dead 2, like, big games. This year, it's like, if you were, like, if you did include ports within Game of the Year discussions, people might actually just hold off their ports until the next year. They're like, I don't want to fuck with Red Dead. Like, I'll just wait till next year and be part of that Game of the Year discussion.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. Weird shit happens.
I don't know if those accolades are worth ruining your cash flow, but maybe. I guess if it was like you were in December and wanted to wait till maybe January or February, maybe, but like a month is a long time to be not making cash.
I mean, let's be real. Game of the Year discussions is kind of like, okay, there are certain discussions that are real. Like the game awards, for instance, like Dice Awards, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's real and it makes sense. But the fact that we get Game of the Year, like, editions of games that did not win Game of the Year, but it's just some random ass person somewhere said, this is my Game of the Year, you're just like, all right, this doesn't even matter anymore. I mean, like, I just don't even care.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't, because it's like everyone has their Game of the Year. So, like, what does it really matter? Like, the fact that both you and me are going to come up with our list of Game of the Year and could potentially be like, here, you get a Jorsh Award. And people would be like, what the fuck is this shit? I don't care who you are. Like, but, that's the entitlement that we can have, because we're creating some medium and we're saying, like, oh, these are the games we played. So at the end of the day, it really just depends on who had fun with a game, and they're gonna pick whatever they want. So
yeah, speaking of old games, what I've been playing is Octopath Traveler finally.
Ooh.
Which is it's a little weird hopping into it. I chose Therian as my original character because right. I expected the stealing to be kind of a bigger part, because normally I like to, like, I normally choose thieves because early game they're like, okay, cool, there's like chests and stuff like that you can like pick locks for, but then if you don't choose a thief or a rogue early on in RPGs, then you kind of miss out on that loot. And either have to double back later or you just miss it. So I was like, I'm going to choose the thief. And then you realize, that's the steal skill's fucking bullshit. It doesn't actually do anything.
I mean, you could steal from everyone in the town, and you can actually get some really good shit
I stole basically everything in the first town, because it's like 100%. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'll steal from you. And I even stole from bums. I was like, this guy's a thief. I don't give a shit. Like, it's just what he does. I so far really enjoy it. Of course, like the man I am, pretty on brand. I have some stupid issues with it.
Of course.
Like the fact that when I put on a helmet, he doesn't put on a helmet. And I'm like, okay, I guess that checks out. But I'm not super far into it. I've only played a couple hours. So I've got like a Therian, and then I just picked up like the apothecary guy. That's pretty interesting. But other than that, yeah, I'm not super deep into it, but it's fun. I pretty much just picked it up specifically for a trip that I'm going on this week.
Yeah.
Morgan and I, my fiance and I, are going on a trip to, what is it, Salt Lake, to see like a live taping of a podcast. Or she is. I don't give a shit about it. I'm just there for like the mall,
Just there
I guess.
playing
I
your
don't
Switch.
know. Yeah, just wanted to go to Salt Lake, I guess. So yeah, I was like, okay, I want a game to play on the drive, even though I have a million games. Why not buy a new one? So I bought Octopath Traveler.
Shouldn't you be playing Hollow Knight?
I should be. I really should be. Interesting enough, the 4 lithographs that I got with my Hollow Knight collector's edition, I finally hung them up. I'll have to post a picture on my Twitter. It's pretty dope. They're pretty sweet, guys. Yeah, they're pretty nice. But speaking of nice stuff, our first news article, because we might as well actually get into the meat and potatoes of this 20 minutes in. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've been rambling.
Just checks out. Our first article is over on IGN. It is written by that good boy, Jonathan Dornbush, and it is Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair's level can change form, and it's a blast to play. So instead of me reading through this article, I would actually like you to give a brief, you to explain this, because this is more of a preview than it is news, but there is some interesting stuff in here when it comes to how the game plays.
Yeah, sure. So one of the cool things about this is, if you don't know what Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair is, essentially they're trying to go back to their roots as the company from, developers who were part of Rare to start creating something that's very similar to the brand of Donkey Kong Country, so a 2D side-scrolling platformer game. And in there, they're using their character's Yooka-Laylee that they recently had that, the Yooka-Laylee 3D action platform game. I'm not too crazy, as I've mentioned before, about the duo, but they're still trying to stick to their brand with it, which I respect. But the game actually looks pretty interesting. I wasn't too crazy about it when I first saw it revealed, but one of the things in here that Jonathan Dornbush is talking about is essentially the game has an overworld. So every time you want to go to different levels, you have this overworld that you have to run through to find the basically books, which is very similar to the original game, but now it's more of a 2D style. And you're essentially doing little puzzles or running through different areas of this overmap to effectively change the nature around you. So in cases where you might open a dam and flood the book that was laying there, which was a portal for you to go to the worlds, now those levels that you had already played are underwater, or you change the overworld so that there's ice on the ground where that book was, and now the world is frozen. Or there's another one where it's, I believe it's air is like the main thing. So there's a bunch of, I guess, you flying in the air. I don't know exactly what happens with that, but essentially there's little elements that will change every one of the levels you play to swap them around. So anything you're going through once will immediately flip on its head, and you'll have to do it again, essentially, but in a totally brand new way, which I think is great. It's very creative. It kind of reminds me of what they pushed with the Yoshi's Woolly World, what I thought it was going to be, because you can play every level forwards and backwards. But the backwards version was really just chase a bunch of Poochies, which was kind of like, meh, whatever. But this version is essentially the entire map is changed in a way based on that element. So you'll see in some of them, like I said, they're underwater now, and you have to go through that world doing it in a totally different way, because it's not as in that way platform based. It's more of precision of swimming through the different areas and not getting hit by enemies and things like that. So basically this is just Jonathan Dornbush going through and talking about how there's this new alternate level system to the game, and it's pretty interesting. It makes me more excited for this game, I think, just because before I wasn't really sure what to expect. And I like the variation of having to go back, but until it's like, really in my hands, I'm not going to know how this feels, because some of it looks still kind of the same as my gripes with the original one, which was that 3D platformer version of Yooka-Laylee. It was very clunky. But it is interesting to see, and it was nice to hear that, Jonathan Dorbush had a good time playing it. So who knows, maybe big things for the next Yooka-Laylee sequel.
If I'm being honest, and this is probably going to lose me some gamer cred, if I really even had any, I was not a big fan, and I'm really
God.
not a big fan of
tell
3D
me.
platformers.
Oh, okay.
Just in general.
Okay.
Let alone Banjo-Kazooie.
You're wrong. You're wrong. But I thought you were gonna go the way of saying you don't like Donkey Kong Country.
No, I've never played Donkey Kong Country.
What the fuck?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I'm losing gamer cred here.
Oh my God.
Once again, I did not get really into video games until later in life. And now I just buy video games. But I'm glad that they're going 2D now, and because I love the characters of Yooka and Laylee. I think they're really, really cute. I love that world, and I really want to experience it, but once again, I kind of despise 3D platformers, with the exception of Psychonauts, because it's the superior 3D platformer, let's be honest. And it's technically a 3D action platformer, but I'm not going to get into
Yeah,
that.
I don't know. There was, like we talked about, I think it was last episode, there was a lot of gripes with it. And personally, I just wasn't as excited once I really got my hands and, teeth into it. But I've always, as much as I love the 3D platformer style, I've always loved the 2D side-scrolling style to it a lot more. I'm a big Donkey Kong Country fan. I can't tell you how many hours I played it when I was a kid, just over and over and over again. And this definitely makes me excited for the actual game. I wish there was a release date on this, but I have no idea. It just says to be announced. So we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like 2D is it's kind of timeless. It just looks really, really sharp and good versus 3D platforming. It can be really weird. It just looks odd. And really the deciding factor on this one for me is how many trouser snakes are in it, but that's I feel like that's
going to be
one.
So although I haven't seen an image with him in it, so I don't know. But I mean, they can't get rid of the trouser snake.
I need a village of trouser snakes. You know what I mean? There's got to be thousands.
I don't know what you mean, but maybe you'll get your wish. Who knows? Maybe Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair will be, it's impossible to find your way through all these trouser snakes. Who knows?
Holy shit, that is so true.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see how many trouser snakes are in this game. But speaking of things that, we really could wait for, Wargroove is coming to the PlayStation 4 without crossplay. This is over on Polygon, written by Owen S. Good. So something that I'm wondering, before I get into this article, I want to ask, did we not read, when it initially came out, they were holding the release for PlayStation 4 specifically until Sony agreed to do crossplay for Wargroove? Was that not something that the developer said? I feel like it was.
I don't remember that. I thought it was more on they just didn't say anything on it. They were just nope, we're not going to make any announcement about why PS4 isn't coming out yet.
Maybe. I'll have to check it out. But this is kind of weird. So it's coming to PlayStation 4, no crossplay. Wargroove comes to PlayStation 4 on Tuesday, July 23rd, but the strategy game won't be offering crossplay, as its Switch, Windows PC, and Xbox One versions do. Developer Chucklefish made the announcement on Thursday, noting that cross-platform play couldn't make it in the goal of feature parity with Wargroove's other versions. No explanation was given, but Chucklefish stressed that the PlayStation 4 players can still download any of the community-made map designs regardless of where they originated, and upload their own maps and campaigns to be shared on other platforms as well as PS4. This is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Fuck them. You know what I'm saying?
I have to look this up. I'm gonna see if I can find this old article.
I don't know. I don't remember them saying anything to that nature. I just remember them saying that they weren't going to do anything. That PS4 would come at a later time. I don't remember them referencing anything to the crossplay portion of this. But it is strange that they're putting just about every single element to this game, as far as all the downloadable content and all the different maps that you can upload and others can see, but you just can't play with other people. It's a weird concept, I guess, But at the same time, I don't know. I'm so tired of the PS4 won't let crossplay happen discussion, just because it's like, I really don't know at this point if PS4 is really like actively trying not to let people, or maybe their infrastructure is just trash that's not allowing to basically go between each other without a lot of work. Like, they talk all the time about it being a flip of the switch, but then we have articles like this where it's just no one can seem to do it other than these big names like Fortnite and now Rocket League. But I don't know. I don't know how.
Which is a little weird because like Chucklefish chief executive Finn Bryce said on Reset Era that we were told in no uncertain terms by Sony that crossplay was not going to happen. This despite being able to literally toggle a switch and have it working, he said. So I don't understand the bullheaded nature of not allowing them to use crossplay, because this doesn't even have like microtransactions. So I don't really get it, because their stance on it beforehand was really from a monetary standpoint, saying that, hey, we don't want you to be able to purchase like a skin or anything in Fortnite, for example. You purchase a skin on Nintendo Switch and then you'd bring it over to PlayStation. That was an issue. I don't know necessarily how that got solved, but I don't believe Wargroove in any real way has some sort of like microtransaction that allows you to like purchase any sort of like new suit or cosmetic items that you can then trade to different platforms. I don't really get I just don't understand why this doesn't have crossplay. It's just dumb. It's weird and it's stupid. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess from the way they're talking, it seems like the executive is basically saying like, yeah, this is on PS4, like, or not PS4, but PlayStation side. Like, we could definitely do it. So I don't know. I guess they're just keeping the floodgates closed. It seems very strange. I don't know why this keeps coming back and forth from the PlayStation perspective, but maybe they have like, I don't know if it causes something to their servers to like have to go back and forth between different platforms. I don't know what that would do. I don't know anything about this. Maybe there's a legit reason, but like, if there was, just fucking say it and stop dicking people around.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Like, transparency is something that's really held in high regard, especially in the games industry. When people come out and say, hey, we delayed a game because of so reason, it's like, hey, that's more well received because you told them exactly why. And Sony's kind of like issue with not only not doing it, but not telling people why is just odd. I don't really understand. And once again, this is, I guess I didn't say this initially, but I should actually say it. We know nothing about gameplay development or game development, so it's very possible that this is a much more intricate issue than we actually realize. Like you said, it might be something to do with Sony's like infrastructure. I just don't really believe that, considering that they've shown like several times that crossplay is possible. But I don't know. This is kind of my worst fear come to life when it comes to crossplay. When we initially spoke about it, I was afraid that big games would get crossplay, but little games wouldn't. And it kind of seems like that's happening, but I'm not going to really like, I don't know. This is
not going to
dumb.
rehash it. I don't know. I mean, at the same time, like, it's shit like this that, you know, is it really going to hurt PlayStation at this stage of the game? Probably not. But if this is constantly, you know, something that's in the news, it very well could. If you say, you know, want to play with your friends and they have a different device, and the next long list of consoles comes out, what are you going to do when potentially PlayStation 5 and Xbox are at, you know, the same caliber? Xbox has a bunch of other developers under its belt, or studios under its belt, that are creating games that might entice you that way. And if your friends are on that platform, then maybe there'll be a shift again, because they'd rather play with the PC group, the Switch group, and, you know, have a more variety or a more various ecosystem to pal around with, since PlayStation is just kind of being all on its lonesome.
Yeah, if you really think about it, if Sony was confident in the brand that PlayStation is, they wouldn't really have an issue with crossplay, especially with games like these where there are no skins to purchase or anything like that. As far as I know, I haven't played Wargroove, but they should be willing to do this, because when crossplay comes around, it's not something that hurts them. It's people are going to buy the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5 for the exclusives. And if they're so certain that their exclusives are amazing and their console's great, then crossplay shouldn't be an issue. And if anything, it would detract from their console if they did not have crossplay on certain games.
Exactly.
Because, yeah, if, let's say, fucking God of War 2 comes out, people are obviously going to buy PlayStation 5 for that. But if people don't necessarily care about God of War 2, but their friends are over on fucking Xbox Scarlet, or it should be still the Nintendo Switch at this time, playing a game, they're more likely to buy those other consoles because they don't really care about the PlayStation exclusives. But once again, Sony, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Sony isn't really worried about the small developers. They're worried about making big moves with their next console and making it for hardcore gamers, which hardcore gamers are going to buy their consoles for the exclusives. They understand that the reason that they would buy a PlayStation 4 is really to play exclusives, especially going from a PlayStation 5 to an Xbox One Scarlet. If they are really the same, if one isn't noticeably worse, then they know that exclusives and their third-party relationships is really what's going to sell that console. So, yeah, whatever. This is just annoying.
Yep, that's it. Whatever. Good job, PlayStation.
Speaking of more PlayStation stuff, this is over on Game Informer. It is written by Imran Khan, and it is Media Molecule looking to contact Dreams creators for official development. Dreams has been out in early access for a little while now, but a lot of people have gotten really, really good at it in a short time. The game has extensive tutorials and vivid creation tools, but some people have special sparks to their creation experiences that set them apart from the rest. For those people, Media Molecule might want to talk to them. In a job posting today, the Dreams developer reveals that they're looking for people who are experienced and proficient with Dreams tools to make some software for the game, presumably to include with the final version. You're a Dreams expert, the listing exclaims. You know the tools and are happy to take on new challenges using them. When working, you'll happily sketch out ideas and drop pitches for your proposals, as well as collaborating with the larger team to make sure project objectives are met, blah blah blah. Yeah, so they're
I can't believe they missed the opportunity to call themselves dreamers.
That would have been a good one. This isn't necessarily an indie games news story, but it's more about independent creators basically creating their own games and then possibly being brought onto a large studio because of it. And I think that's really cool. People are making some really awesome stuff in Dreams. Mm-hmm. I'm not in on the beta or anything like that, but I have seen some of the stuff that people are making, and they're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
They recreated one of the Legend of Zelda games in Dreams or something like that, and people call him Lark instead of Link or some shit like that.
Yeah, some of them are pretty interesting. I've seen a couple. There was one where I've seen where it was Crash Bandicoot, totally recreated. I think it's, and there was a Final Fantasy 7 I think remake where they were the Polygon-esque China versions again. I think it's really cool. This whole concept is awesome. The fact that man, it's so interesting because what a weird discussion they must have had, from a boardroom perspective, from the actual Dream Molecule team, of just being Media Molecule, team just being oh, all right, so we want to have, obviously some games for people right when it starts up. What are we going to do? And people are kind of looking around and they're why don't we just get all these people who are already working on it? What a weird concept to be all right, we'll just fucking pay these people who are already doing shit for us. It's amazing that they built those tools in such a community has already kind of been dreamt up in their eyes of like, wow, these people can make great games. We're going to do something with them. And what a crazy opportunity for those individuals who are probably just messing around with it because they're like, this is awesome. I want to try to make games. Like, what a great experience from both sides to be able to, best of both worlds. Everybody wins in this kind of experience.
Yeah, how many people do you think that are now going to actually go in?
Oh,
and,
so many people. They're going to be like, I want to be part of the beta.
Dreams.
I'm like the best. I'm a dreams expert. I'm a dreamer. I've been dreaming in my dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like all kinds of things.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people that are going to rush to this and do it. Because, like, as Imram says in this article, he's talking about how, like, if you could show you're proficient with the tools and everything, this is a great stepping stool for people wanting to break through into video game development, but they just haven't found the right way in.
Yeah.
And that's so true. They're just messing around with this weird-ass game creation tool, and in the end, they possibly get hired by a big studio. That's pretty fantastic. That's kind of like the dream in a way. I mean, the dream I would really say is making your own game and then making millions, but
I mean, that possibly could be a thing.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, you don't know how much they're getting paid for this.
That is kind of interesting that they're hiring people that know how to use the Dreams creation tool
that they created. Like,
yeah,
it
they
seems
created it
kind of backwards, like in a way.
It's weird. This is odd. This is an odd situation. At least this one's a nice situation instead of stupid ass crossplay.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess PlayStation. It's give and take.
Yeah, it's very true. This is things like this are really making me wonder when Dreams fully comes out, what exactly is going to happen. So let's say you make a game in Dreams, and this has kind of been up in the air for a while.
The legalities of it.
Yeah, if you can possibly sell these games, like how you would get the money from that, or if you can't sell them, just how that all works. Because I know in other games, you can actually sell your games in a way, or at least make like demo prototypes.
Yeah. Maybe they'll do like an open market where you can put like a specific game like up for sale, and then they'll just take a certain portion of it, a cut that would be basically like, you used our software to develop this, so we get a percentage of any of the profits you make. And that's kind of like, that's the negative that you have to forego because you use that software specifically to create it. Like, there has to be some kind of give back to the people who are building those tools, and then in that they obviously will benefit because they're getting money, but then potentially could be like, oh, we're putting that money back into the tools so that you have more expansive like selections to go about. So maybe they could do something like that. I don't know how willing though people would be to buy a game and then be like, oh, now I'm going to buy all these other games in here. Like, and that might be kind of why they're doing this, as far as paying people to create the starter packs, because maybe Dreams will be like, hey, you're going to get this game. You're going to be able to build whatever you want. You're going to get like 50 like small little games that are already built and ready for you, and you can play, and it'll be a lot of fun, whatever. And then there will be an open market of randomly, like, if the people want to make it free, it's free, but then the others could make it, $1, $2, whatever, and then you'll have to kind of live with that based on whoever is creating the market.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Dreams. I'm excited to find out. Mm-hmm. But I'm way more excited to get crammed as we hop into News Cram.
Cram.
Oh, we got some interesting news stories today up in News Cram. First
cramming,
one,
boy.
You're about to get just crammed full.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's just so much news up in there. It's just good stuff. We are over on Game Informer for the first one. It is Mordhau. Mordhau. Developer outlines new maps and modes in the latest update blog. Still on Game Informer, we've got Skullgirls is getting a webcomic series. Also on Game Informer, new Bloodstain update does not do much for ailing Switch version.
I mean, what were you expecting?
Yeah, you did say you didn't want to really shit on it much this episode. That's why you didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we've already talked about this, dude. And the one thing that I will say about this article, and I brought this up before, is like it's so brilliantly worded by Imran at the end of this article of just literally saying in the last sentence, the Switch version needed to be delayed, not the patches that fix it. Like, that's it. Like, it just shouldn't have come out.
it's so depressing that that's kind of the legacy of this game on Switch, is that it just eats ass.
God, and it sucks too, because think about a person who's like so excited. Like, you literally had to wait like extra days. Like, I mean, granted, it was only like an extra 1 or 2 days because they like did a weird like day transition for each of the different consoles. But like, you have to wait extra time to then get this piece of garbage. Like, why?
I can't wait to see what happens with the Switch version. I hope they fix it. I really hope they do.
I do.
But considering that they fixed the whole like opening the box, like the chest glitch, is just like, hey,
Restart
you just
it.
have to play again.
They'll be like, hey, just buy the PS4 copy. That's how you fix it.
That would be so funny. That would be my favorite quick fix. They're like, just buy it on another console.
Yeah, that's a way to really destroy your brand in like an instant.
That would be fantastic. Then we're over on Twinfinite, and it is River City Girls gets plenty of PlayStation 4 gameplay showing the girls in action. Still on Twinfinite. Puzzle platformer Etherborn releases today with dreamy launch trailer. Then we've got Shantae and more offered in Humble Very Positive Bundle 3. Now we're over on Nintendo Life, and it is God of War's art director strikes back with 3D takes on Cuphead characters. Those
cool.
actually look really cool.
Yeah, I think the dice head guy was my favorite.
The devil creeps me out.
Yeah, the fact that
he looks like Krampus.
I know, it was really weird though, because like all of them are like nice smooth characters, and then you have the big hairy devil, and I was like, ooh, I don't like this.
Yeah, he's all furry and creepy looking. It's disgusting. Now we are staying on Nintendo Life, for Shovel Knight's board game Kickstarter has been canceled and relaunching mid-August. We already talked about this on the podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Last 2 weeks ago was breaking news. It was crazy.
Suck it. We talked about it before Nintendo Life did.
Woo!
Give us money, Nintendo Life.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Well, maybe one day.
I think that might be a conflict of interest too, considering we talk about this shit so often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unless they just want to also host us.
Ooh. You got me there. Then we've got Kumo is hoping to bring a journey-like atmospheric story to Switch next year. Brawlhalla's annual Heatwave event adds new and old summer-themed skins. Then over on IGN, we've got 2 Point Hospital will land on consoles by Christmas. Now back to Game Informer. New trailer and release date for The Church of Darkness. Then back to Twinfinite.
Should have just listed these.
Yeah, I should really just put them like in order by where they came from. But you know what? I'd rather just do it in this really disjointed and annoying way.
Yeah, why not? It's all good.
So on Twinfinite, Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden introduce a new hero with expansion. Then now on Nintendo Life, and these last 3 are on. Oh fuck, there's more. The last 4 are on Nintendo Life. Don't worry. We've got Run Away From Your Fears when Phobia creeps onto the Switch this year. Zelda Wind Waker inspired Summer in Mara, delayed until February 2020. Right. Horizon Chase Turbo's first ever DLC brings summer vibes. Okay. Yep. And Artistic Smash 'em Up Ape Out gets 30% discount and a free eShop demo.
Did you ever play Ape Out?
No, I never played it. Apparently people really, really liked it, especially the whole, like, the drum beats also follow your actions.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I've never played it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. So it's one of those I probably will sometime soon games.
We are about to hop into God Bless the Crowd, but I would like to say, nice little throwback to God Bless the Crowd of yore. We actually talked about Summer of Mara
It's true.
on God Bless the Crowd.
Yeah.
a while ago when it was on Kickstarter.
And just like in Kickstarter fashion, it's being delayed.
That's true. That's very true. But, of course, Josh, we've been blessed with so many amazing indie game news stories today that I think it's about time we give back to the creators in our next segment, God Bless the Crowd. This is where the biggest of average Josh Boy hops into all sorts of different crowdfunding sites, finds some awesome games to talk about, and we talk about them. Today...
Was that you trying to make your voice go low, or were you just yawning?
I don't know. It was kind of just like... I was talking, you know, when like people okay, this is a perfect way to bring up Breath of the Wild. So in Breath of the Wild, you know how your stamina meter would get to like the red, and if you timed it like just right in the red, you could do a quick gust and jump like double the amount that you normally would.
Yep.
Okay, so that was kind of it. Like, I only had so much breath still in my lungs, and I had to get it out. So I was like, whoa.
I don't know why, but that reminded me of the Tim Allen Home Improvement noise.
I forget what it's like. It's like,
The
what? Yeah, it's awesome. I went back and listened to like old Game Over Greggy shows, and like the first episode, they do that like 12 times.
Too good.
It's pretty excessive. This week we've got two awesome games on God Bless the Crowd, and they are Fiction Sphere, which is a 2D technical platformer adventure, a love letter to 90s style video games, and Phantom Gear, a new original action adventure platformer game for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive console. That one's a little weird, but we'll talk about it in a sec. Let's hop into Fiction Sphere, which is asking for $20,000. That's their goal. They have $7,682, and they still have 26 days left to go. How do you feel about this game, Josh?
From a first glance, I was like, wow, this is Mega Man X. And I was like, sure, I'm down for that. It has some weird... So basically, it's a platformer that looks like the Mega Man style, where you're going through, but instead of you just, run and gun, you have combo moves and different skills that you can learn, and you have to fight the enemies and bosses with those different moves. I'm sure that some are better than others, and you have to use them back and forth and time your abilities properly, which makes it, a more complex type game. And then it also, and this is where that a love letter to 90s style video games comes in, it has like random other parts where you're shooting random enemies in the background, kind of like you would in one of those shmups. Like on the bottom side, you have to like also focus on things in the background that might throw bombs at you, I guess. And then there's like a part where you're on a bike and you're just driving back and forth, and it's kind of like Mario Kart-esque.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, that it seems like this game might come out to be like how people say, similar to Destiny, how Destiny tried to accomplish so many things, tried to incorporate so many different things that it failed to fully incorporate any of them.
Yeah,
it seems like that's exactly, might be what happens here.
That's exactly where I'm at with it. So when I'm watching this, I'm down for the part of it being a platformer and for it having the combo system, because it seems like the combo system is pretty complex, like I mentioned, and it could be pretty fun, but I'm sure at the first couple takes of it I'll be trash at, which is fine, but it'll still be fun because you'll be able to do a bunch of combo moves and chain them together and stuff like that. But then you see all those other elements to it, and I'm like, nah, I could do without those. Like, I don't need that shooting random enemies in the background. Like, I just want a beat 'em up platformer where they're using really cool combos and really cool enemies to throw at me. Then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will mesh well, and there's a very, high possibility that it could, but it's just, like you said, doing so much at one time means you can't perfect one thing. So you have, for lack of a better word, I don't mean to say it in disrespect, but half-assed elements overall.
Yeah, plus their main character looks real dumb.
Well, that I'm not I'm not on the same side, but I do think it's weird that his hair is like, it looks like a sideways hat kind of.
Yeah, it's like peacocking in this weird way, and somehow his glasses like rest on it. And times where it actually shows him straight on, like at the what is this? The thumbnail for the trailer, his glasses are on his hair, not his eye. Like, it's just one eye and then hair.
I mean, because otherwise it would look kind of weird. It would just look like a monocle.
I would rather him have a monocle and just not have the other side of his face because he looks stupid. Which kind of sucks. That's the only thing that I don't really like about this game, other than the weird kind of like just things that seem kind of tossed in there. Those other weird like disparate gameplay elements is the fact that all of these characters and these enemy designs look really, really cool, with the exception of the main character who looks fucking dumb. Yeah,
I was gonna say I do like the models for a lot of the enemies that you have to face. Like, they seem really interesting. I really like Frankenstein.
Dude, me too. He looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I'm saying, this looks like it could be an awesome game, and I'm definitely interested in that type of combo system from the fighting potential of it. But I don't know. It does seem a little wonky. I don't know if this is one that I would back right away, but this is definitely one that I want to watch. I think it'll still make it because it's got 26 days and it's almost halfway to its goal. Let me see what its higher tiers are, though. It's already gotten rid of its $1,000 tier, as well as a bunch of the limited time discounts. Yeah, it looks like they have one who paid $750, but they have a couple others. They have some interesting things, too. They have, like, a clay sculpture of one of the characters. Getting to create an enemy, which I know you always hate, a physical art book, a vintage-style blueprint, which is pretty cool. Ooh, an exclusive mouse pad. That's kind of interesting. But, like, some of the stuff is really cool. I think it could be a fun game. I just don't know if this is going to be one I want to back right away.
Yeah, this looks really, really cool. I really love its art style, how it's a mix between, like, robotics and mysticism, how they have these really cool, like, robotic-looking centaurs, but then they also have, like, it's just kind of like this Phoenix-esque girl. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And they have, like, a Hydra boss, men in mech suits. Like, the art style for this game looks really, really cool, and like you said, it's really reminiscent of games like Mega Man.
Yeah. This is definitely, like, from a nostalgia factor, like, part of me is like, you should just get it because it looks a lot like Mega Man X, and that was one of my favorite games as a kid growing up. But I really hate this.
Except for freaking Mega Man, and it looks cool.
But I just really hate this gallery shooter thing. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this is definitely one of the biggest reasons why I'm like, it's probably a nope.
Yeah, the gallery shooter thing is pretty weird. I'm wondering if that's like, it just happens on occasion, because it doesn't seem to be a main component in gameplay.
Yeah, so
it seems to just happen every now and then.
That's kind of what I thought, but then I was watching like the gameplay trailer of it, and there was one part where there were enemies and you were like shooting things in the back. So I was like, I don't know how often that's going to be used.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like that.
Also, what the hell is going on with this one boss whose titties are just out, but she has no nipples?
Okay. Now I gotta look, of course. Let's see these fat titties.
I never said fat titties, but all right. She's one of the bosses,
like the Hydra girl.
One of the bosses all the way down. The weird Scylla, yeah.
Yeah, I think she has like the blue part. I think this acting is kind of a jacket.
I don't know, dude.
Barely covering her nipples.
On the video game version of her, yeah. On the drawing right to the side, definitely just nipples.
Oh, it's definitely not. Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe her alien race was born without nipples. Maybe just she was born without nipples. What?
I don't know.
Why are you hating the nipples, bro?
I don't know, man. It's just
It is super weird to see boobs without nipples, though. Yeah, it's a little odd.
It's just big old fat sacks.
All right, time to move into Phantom Gear. Let's talk about this game. Phantom Gear is a new original action-adventure platform game for the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive console. They're asking for $25,000. That is their goal. They have 21 days left to go, and they have $17,783. I think there's pretty much no way this game doesn't get backed. It's really cool.
It does.
With the exception of it's for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive. That's pretty fun.
That's the thing, dude. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. The game looks pretty interesting. It's very reminiscent of, the old school Sega Genesis style of gameplay as far as like the platformer action goes. The music to it is just phenomenal. I was listening to some of the original, like the soundtracks that they're going to have for those levels, and it's so like it's so Sega Genesis. Like it reminds me so much of like the old school Sonic levels, and that style of I don't know, it's just that style of music is so, I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing or I fucking love it. Like it's so good. But then you go through the tiers, and granted, I'm a big cheapo. I would never go for the higher tiers anyway. But like, this is definitely something that I'm a little confused at, because they have the lower tier of $15 where you can receive the game ROM file, which sucks because then you literally have to get an emulator for it. They're not, packaging this in any other way other than a ROM. And then you go to a couple higher tiers, and once you get to the $50 one where you get the game cartridge, they no longer give you the ROM.
Yeah, this is weird.
So like you literally have to have a Sega Genesis for this to even benefit you at all.
Or the Mega Drive. Oh, great. That's much more, accessible. You have so many options.
Like,
I also hate that the second tier is $40 and it's like, cool, you get the ROM, but also you get this physical copy of Coffee Crisis. What the fuck is Coffee Crisis?
I don't know. I guess it's something they made before.
It's something for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive as well.
Yeah, which also does not benefit me in any way. Like this is the thing. Like, this looks really cool, and if I personally, I don't, because I never go for like the physical thing. But if I did want to, and if there's people out there who want that physical edition of it, like, why are you limiting them in the way where you're like, okay, great, now go buy a Sega Genesis? Like,
yeah, this is really weird, and I feel like it kind of limits what they can do for stretch goals. Am I the only one who thinks that? Like, you can't really promise this to come to consoles when you developed it as like a ROM. Like other consoles, you can't really like have a stretch goal saying it's going to come to Switch and PlayStation 4.
Yeah. I mean, I get they still could. Like, there's definitely ways that they could change it so they just build some kind of emulator around that would package everything, and then they would build that in a way.
Oh, yeah, they literally don't have one. They have the initial goal, extra level, another extra level, more enemies and bigger levels, a new playable character, even bigger levels, and mini boss in each level, and boss rush mode. And then if they get past that, they have like question marks and shit, which that's a lot of money just for those.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to make it that far, but maybe that's the Switch port.
Yeah, this is weird. This is really weird.
I don't know. Like,
which I actually really like the character designs in this. I think it looks really, really cool. I like the Ocular Force like characters. They look really, really cool. And I also didn't know that the main character's name is Josephine. It's a girl.
Yeah.
It kind of looks boyish.
A little bit, yeah. But you could tell from
and
the
she
eyes.
also has robot feet.
Yeah. I think, like...
That's a little weird.
A little bit.
In all things, in an attack, she lost her feet.
I mean... It happens. Sometimes you step on a bomb. Maybe she stepped on a landmine, but only her feet were damaged.
I guess. Now she's got robot feet. Like, that's cool. And she's got fat hands, dude. She's got freaking massive hands.
Yeah, well, you know what they say about big hands.
Big gloves.
Yeah, that is what she has. Anyway, yeah, it kind of sucks, to be honest, because like I spent a good amount of time ranting about how I'm like, this is dumb that it's not available, like accessible in other areas, but like the game actually looks pretty fun. The art style to it looks cute. The music is awesome. Like, this is something that I definitely think they're hurting themselves for putting that niche spin on, hey, it's a Sega Genesis thing. Like, and granted, they could still do this, but like, make it so you're also creating a PC port, a Switch port, a PS4 port. Like, I'm sure there's people who, just like me, are seeing this and being like, well, there's no reason for me to back this.
Yeah, they could have done something like how Orange Island also had that SNES cartridge, but it was just
that one was fake, wasn't it?
Like a distant like backer thing. I don't know.
Or maybe I'm thinking...
yeah, it was. I think it was just like a shell. But I mean, they could have done things where it's like you could get the actual Sega Genesis and stuff in a higher tier, but still have like the PC port,
Right,
like the
exactly.
actual PC version of your game, so people will actually buy it so they can get this game. Versus literally only the people who still have operable like Sega Genesis Mega Drive consoles, or for some reason, I shouldn't say for some reason, because there's a lot of people who have those emulators on their PCs already. But
yeah, for sure there are.
Still, that's kind of a weird thing to have.
But yeah, that's the thing. And I like personally as a collector of video games, I generally like to have my collection in somewhere like Steam. I like it because it's something that if I, for any specific reason, one day my computer crashes, I could still have my collection. I could download all of them and I could play them again. This is the kind of thing where if that happens and I have a ROM file, it's lost.
Yeah, that sucks. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I mean, could you back it up? Like,
I mean, you could back it up in other areas.
Drive?
Like, you could do something like Google Drive and just store the file there. But, like, it's a lot clean. I don't know. And it is nitpicky. I will, like, admit it is nitpicky, but I'd rather have it as a game that's a full PC version that I can connect to Steam or some other outlet that I could just download from a server whenever I wanted.
Yeah, this does really suck, because I would honestly like to play this game. I think the combat looks really fast and fluid.
Mm-hmm.
I like a lot of the character designs, and it just seems interesting. I mean, she's got freaking robot feet, dude. Like, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
I mean, maybe,
I will never play this
maybe
game.
if it does well, it'll be one of those things where they eventually port it to a Switch or something like that. Like, I could definitely see this game doing well on a Switch eShop, just random released kind of a game, but that'll definitely be a long time in the future, because obviously it's going to start with this, and then depending on popularity, it'll then diverge into other facets.
Yeah. Before we move into our last segment of the podcast, I would like to say one more thing about this game. I think it's really, really cool and really ballsy of this team to only release this on those consoles and everything. So I think that's awesome, and I totally feel like this is something that is made for the hardcore gamer that is like kind of longing to play their Sega Genesis or their Mega Drive.
Yeah. So
I definitely think there's a person that this is for. I really just wanted to get across that I think it sucks that like I won't be able to play it because I don't have a freaking Sega Genesis or like a ROM on my PC, but this is really cool. And I really like it. It just, that kind of stuff sucks. But I do really appreciate the fact that they committed to the fact that they just wanted to put it on these consoles, and that's it. They're not really going to, like, pander. They didn't want to put it on anything else. I really appreciate that. That's just, they've got balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got, what do people say? They've got grit.
Oh, I was going to say cojones.
People like their moxie.
Oh, yeah, the moxie. Yeah, and honestly, like I said, once again, this is nitpicky. You can easily find emulators for this. It's just, it's slightly annoying, and it's also weird from a consumer perspective to limit yourself in that way, just because if you create that kind of port, you can then have it on Steam and easily, like, I mean, what's their game plan afterwards? Like, how's their selling point? Like, this is for the people who do the Kickstarter part, but like after, what are they going to be like? Hey, we're selling this random ROM.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
it'll be interesting.
I don't know. It's definitely weird, and there's definitely a reality where we can play this. It's just I'm not going to.
All right, it's time to hop into our last segment of the podcast. This is where we talk about a random question up in the games industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be indie games. Sometimes it's about anime boobs. This week, it is, will there ever be a hole left in gaming like the one left by Game of Thrones? So I wanted to ask this question specifically because everybody keeps talking about what will be the next Game of Thrones, like the next TV show that'll kind of fill that hole in your heart. I'd recommend just watching anime. Really fills me up in like interesting ways, if you know what I mean.
Gross.
Those are winks, by the way.
Gross.
But yeah, it's like everybody's talking about The Expanse, The Witcher, all of these big TV shows that are going to fill the void that Game of Thrones has left in your heart and in your life. And I want to know if that's ever going to happen in games. But I should say, that I didn't think about it too much when I initially wrote the question, and then when I thought about it a little bit more, I think games already have. This has already happened. Like Castlevania, for instance. Like, people hanker for Castlevania so much that they consistently play spiritual successors. A hole was left in their life, so now it makes an entire subgenre that is just spiritual successors to Castlevania. So I kind of am answering my own question
this
in a
is
way.
perfect. All right, I'm done then. Let's go home.
You're like, peace out. Bye, guys.
Yeah, I mean, no, I totally, I'm right there with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. Personally, and this is just my take because I never really watched it. I don't care about Game of Thrones, but I get the point that, you know, it was a big popular topic. But I also think the concept of the gaming world versus more mainstream, like, popularity when it comes to TV shows is still not at the same level at all. So I don't think, as far as will there ever be a hole left in gaming like that, like at that size or that, you know, proportion, I don't think so, at least not for some time, until video games are more the popular thing, which they are becoming more of the popular thing, but I just don't think they're at the same level right now as something like a TV show would be. The only thing that's coming to mind personally is maybe like something like Metroid Prime, just because we have so many people bitching about that and wanting that to come back. Or
but Metroid doesn't ever, from what I understand, Metroid is not a system seller. Like, it moves consoles when it comes out because Metroid fans will play it and they want the Switch to play it. But from Metroid is not a massive series, like not a big money maker for Nintendo, which is kind of weird because it seems like everybody talks about freaking Metroid, dude. It's
yeah. I mean, it's because
it's
I mean, it could just be and that might be just me kind of like the loudest crowd is not always the most kind of a thing. Like, it could just be...
Yeah, it's the vocal minority.
Yeah, like, they're much louder in comparison. But granted, there are... Like, I know a lot of people who play the Metroid series and who are very upset that it's not coming anytime soon. As far as, like, a hole in the community... I don't know, because video games is such a weird medium as far as, like, the different... I don't know. I guess TV is too, as far as genres. I don't know. I don't see it on the same scale.
Yeah, honestly, I think the only way that you could leave a big hole like what Game of Thrones is leaving is if, and I don't think Xbox could do it. I don't think Microsoft could do it. I don't think Sony could do it. I think Nintendo is literally the only publisher, the only developer that could say, hey, we're not making this kind of game anymore, and people would kind of just shut down. I think if they said,
can you imagine,
they were no longer making like Legend of Zelda,
yeah, that's what I was
Mario,
gonna go with.
Yeah, that's basically it. I feel like those are the only games that you could say we will no longer make any of them, which would literally never happen. But like, not even in an alternate universe would that happen, unless Mario has some kind of sex scandal, which he should because he's a garbage person. But
you and your weird fucking... All right. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, the reason why I don't think of it the same way and why I just can't wrap my head around like a hole in like the community or a hole in like, oh, we just really need that kind of thing is because like I think about Game of Thrones and like, first off, I didn't like it. I wasn't crazy about it. I don't care about it. But it is that kind of popularity thing where like just everyone is talking about it. You go into work, everyone is like, did you see the new episode? Can you, oh my God, the new season's coming up. I gotta buy HBO because like the fact that it was like it is kind of like one of those things where it's like a Zelda or a Mario where it's like it is not in the same sense of like a console seller, but it was a subscription seller because people would buy HBO just for that. Like the fact that there was something that could do that. So in that sense, I guess it is kind of like with video games for that matter, but I just don't, it'll never be at that popularity, or not to say never, but just not now.
I should also say another franchise that I think that people would really be butthurt about and would leave a void in their lives is if Bethesda announced that they were no longer making the Elder Scrolls games.
Oh,
they're like,
yeah,
no.
that would.
Because Elder Scrolls isn't like it's not niche. Whenever those games come out, I remember I worked at Wahoo's, like this arcade, when I was like 15 and a half, 16, when Elder Scrolls, when Skyrim came out, and everybody was talking about it. People I didn't even know that liked video games were talking about it. They're like, yeah, dude, I got my Daedric hearts. I'm making potions and shit. I was like, man, this is pretty weird. I thought I was the only one who liked video games.
It's a sweep in the nation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm glad that gaming culture is getting a little bit more popular. Also, how do you feel about the whole mobile gamers aren't gamers thing?
I mean, I don't think mobile gamers aren't gamers. I just think mobile games suck. Like, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Like, the concept of gamer, like, I think is pretty dumb. Like, anyone who plays a game is now a gamer because, like, what does that even mean? You know, like,
yeah.
What's the definition of a gamer? Like, there's so many different genres. There's so many different styles. There's so, like, is now a professional, like, esports player a gamer? Is that the only gamer? Because they're the ones, like, is a streamer a gamer? Because they're getting, like, paid to do it? Like, or is it just someone who's a fanatic of playing games? Or is it just someone who casually plays? Like, there's no, like, gamer is just a word that you put as filler after the actual description of what they are.
Yeah. People often, when this comes up in conversation, they're like, yeah, why do we even call ourselves gamers? Like, if you love movies, you don't call yourself like a movie lover or anything like that. They call themselves cinephiles, I'm fairly certain. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the reason for that is, and this is kind of like a weird theory, it's kind of far-fetched for me, but I feel like people, like, watching movies was normalized. It became a thing. Like, to be a moviegoer, to be a cinephile, a movie lover was never a disparate group of people. They were never, like, kind of ostracized. They weren't called dorks and shit like that. I mean, they weren't nerds.
Yeah, there's a whole negative connotation still around video games in general. Like,
yeah, being a gamer.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, that's why people are so gatekeepery and people want to be gamers, because it's finally a group that they're part of now. Now they have an identity based on this one word, and including more people in that makes them feel a little bit less special. But this is, of course, just a dumbass theory that I have, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. But also, you know, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I get the thought of, like, wanting to preserve what you had, you know, maybe before it was on a popular scale, and maybe you're kind of upset that people are making it more mainstream, or in the way of, like, I don't even know. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to try and preserve that just because it doesn't really mean much. But I will say at the same time, it is very interesting because even myself, who is a big fanatic of games, who talks about games, who plays games constantly, who writes about games, I still feel a little awkward when people will ask me things and I'll be like, oh, I was playing video games, or oh, I'm doing something for, like, games journalists, like that kind of stuff. Like, I'll say it and I'll feel like a little cringy, and I don't know why. Like, it's you know, it's part of the gaming culture of being this, like, this outcast in a way that's, you know, slowly lifting, but still is there, obviously.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't know. I enjoy the identity of being a gamer, and I don't feel uncomfortable about bringing it up. Something that I do despise about it, though, is the whole, like, gatekeepery issues. Like, my fiance was in a class with these guys, and they were talking about, like, playing games and stuff.
Yep.
And my fiance brought out something about, like, me playing video games, and they immediately, not knowing me or anything, were like, oh yeah, just you play, like, Fortnite and Call of Duty and shit. Like, immediately went to what they thought was a fake gamer boy kind of a thing. And she's like, no, he actually plays a lot of indie games. Like, he plays all these games. And they're like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, okay, what?
Yeah. But like, why?
Like,
why
I'm
try to
glad
start
you accepted me.
Why try to start something with someone who's not even there and like has literally nothing to do with your social like context of what a gamer is?
Yeah, it's really weird. I honestly just feel like, and this is gonna sound bad, but I don't actually think it is. I feel like it's just people trying to feel special. Like there's 7 billion people on Earth. Odds are there's somebody out there that is literally exactly like you. Obviously not like physically, but they're exactly like you emotionally and intellectually. And people are just trying to find any way to feel special now. And if being a gamer is the way that they feel special, I think they're pretty willing to defend that until the death, seemingly. But that's about the end of this podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys would like to follow us outside the show, you can follow the podcast itself on Twitter at IndiePod. You guys can hit us up there. Possibly come on the podcast. We could talk about your games, all that awesome stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Hyde Legion. You can follow Josh at _George90. And we'll have some interesting news about some cool stuff we're doing next week. But just keep your ears open, I guess, in a way, for next week's podcast.
You should probably always keep them open. Ear clogs are no joke.
Maybe you should just staple them shut.
Oh, probably the best advice you've given out.
I think you could still hear.
I mean, I guess so, but it would also really hurt and probably limit you.
That's very true. That's very true. Don't do that. Let's not do that.
All
just
right.
keep your ears open. Listen for the podcast. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.